Hey, welcome back to the show. I'm your host, Charity Majors, and welcome to part two of my top tips for high level networking. And if you haven't listened to the first episode, definitely go back and check it out. I just got back from an incredible, really high level networking event. And I love walking into rooms like this because it is other people that really understand the value of what it looks like to not just grow your network for you, but to grow your network for your network. And this is a big reason that I am a component of getting in the room. And especially as a leader, if you're a community builder, you need to understand the importance of growing your network, not just for you, but growing your network for your network. And I talked about this in the first episode, and it came from Brendan Burchard. He was at the event and came in with this incredible energy. He's an incredible connector, an incredible networker. And he talked about that concept. And so definitely go back and listen to that first episode. You're going to find a ton of value in it. And here's part two, where I go over the rest of the tips that I have for you when it comes to high level networking. Now, this is for you if you are, maybe you're new to the networking space, but you want to do it correctly. Or if you are, maybe you're not necessarily new to the networking space, but you've seen it done really poorly in the past. And you're like, okay, I know what not to do, but I need a little bit of help in understanding what to do when it comes to this higher level understanding of networking and the value that it is, the value that it provides, as well as the value that you bring into the room. So again, go listen to the first episode. Here's part two. The next tip that I have for you is that don't ever judge a book by its cover. And I love this concept because, of course, when you go into these high level networking groups or these high level communities or masterminds, or like the event that I was just at, the dinner series with Chris and Lori Harder, and we got to hear from Brendan Burchard. I actually got to speak at their dinner series in February. And when you go into rooms like this, especially with big leaders and influencers and people that understand social media, you're going to see the fun outfits. I love wearing the fun outfits. And it's going to be a mix of people who also maybe fashion isn't their thing. And maybe they're just coming in, Brendan Burchard was in like a sweatshirt and jeans and tennis shoes. And I just remember when I first learned this concept, first of all, it was something that I lived when I first got into networking over a decade ago. I was an award-winning entrepreneur. I was a personal trainer. I had my own in-person wellness facility. And I would show up to these networking events in my sweatpants, like in my Lulus and in my, tank tops or my zip ups and my tennis shoes. And people, they didn't quite know what to do with me, as far as I would show up into this professional event and I would show up as a personal trainer, sometimes because that's just what was in between. I was in between clients, or that was just what I had for the day. And it was really interesting because it was like sometimes people took me seriously and sometimes they didn't, because I just showed up in sweatpants. And so even though I was this award-winning entrepreneur, I was an influencer in the local area, if people didn't necessarily know who I was, they were like, oh, who's this girl in sweatpants? Like they were like totally judging by like the book, me, by its cover. So that example, I also learned then the value of really dressing appropriate for the occasion. Like if I wanted people to learn to take me more serious, or if I was speaking more, or if I was showing up at these other events in a different capacity besides being a personal trainer, so more so as a speaker, more so as I did a lot of work with nonprofits multiple years ago. And so when I showed up more in the business context, when I actually showed up in more business attire, found that they took me a little bit more seriously. And it's kind of this juxtaposition of, for me, I've also learned that through that experience is to not judge a book by its cover. Because sometimes the most unassuming people, or the ones that, now don't get me wrong, like I love a good outfit. You're like, when we go to events, I'm going to wear the good outfits. Like, so don't think, like, don't hear what I'm not saying. Okay. But sometimes the most unassuming people are also some of the best connections that you can have. Even with this last event, one of the women that I've connected with and in February and in the last event that we just had with the dinner series at this high level networking event, she's a little bit older. She doesn't wear a ton of makeup. You know, she doesn't necessarily like quote unquote stand out in the crowd, but oh my goodness, she is a wealth of wisdom and she has sold multiple seven-figure businesses. And she is this incredible communicator, an incredible leader. But you put her up there, out in the room with a bunch of other people who, in the room, there are stylists and fashion designers and influencers, and we're all showing up to the nines with our really great fashion uh, outfits because we love to show up and express ourselves in that way. And all of a sudden, there's also these people that quote unquote look normal, if you will, and very unassuming. But oh my goodness, like those are some of the best connections that I had. And so, do I want to seek those women that really stand out? Absolutely. And I don't want to judge a book by its cover, because some of the most unassuming, not stand out, blend in, if you will, people, they have a ton of value to offer and to give, and they are really great connections as well. So that's my first tip, is to not ever judge a book by its cover when it comes to high level networking, because you never know who is sitting next to you, who is at the table with you, who you are connecting with, and every single person is worth getting to know. The next tip that I have for you, and this one came from Brendan Burchard, and I loved what he said, is instead of walking into the room with the mentality of, hey, here I am, walk in with the mentality of, oh, there you are. Like, I have been looking for someone. I have been looking for you. I've been looking, like, my network has been looking for someone just like you to be able to connect with. I've been looking for someone with your expertise. I've been looking for someone just like you. And so instead of this, hey, here I am, it's this, oh, there you are. Like, I see you and I value you and I am here for you. I'm going to listen to you, and your story matters and your expertise. Like, I can learn something from you. So when you come in with that heart and that mentality, and that's really a heart posture and what I like to call a come from, it's going to make all the difference. Instead of like, hey, here I am. It's not, and again, don't hear what I'm not saying. This isn't the, like, don't put on the really cute outfit that makes you stand out, that you love to express yourself and to like be the leader that you are in the room. But it's also it's this heart posture of, oh man, like, I really see you. And I really value you. And I can learn something from anybody in the room. I know for me, I even learned some stuff from my 1-year-old and my 7-year-old. Like, they are some of my greatest teachers, as long as I have that mentality that I can learn something from everyone and everyone around me is valuable, right? The next one is to be present. This actually is a really great, it just kind of piggybacks off of what I was just sharing. But another really great tip when it comes to high level networking is to be present with every interaction and really value every single individual that is in front of you. Like, when you are with them for whatever time is allotted for that connection, be with them. Like, let your heart sink in and be present. Like, really see them, really listen to them, really hear them. Be the most interested person in them over being interesting. Like, be really, really interested in them. One of my favorite questions to ask is, oh, tell me more about that. Like, it just invites this expansion of a conversation of what it is that they are passionate about or what it is that they're sharing about. So that is like a secret weapon that you can use now. I keep it in my back pocket and I'm just passing it on to you. But that question is, oh, tell me more about that. Like, I'm really intrigued. Can you share more about that? I would love to hear more about whatever it is that they're sharing about. And when you invite people in to expand on that, oh, like they feel so seen and heard and known and loved by you. And from a human to human connection standpoint, that is actually one of the most valuable things that we could give someone and offer someone, is the space for them to be seen and heard, known and valued, even if it's that brief interaction, even if it's the 4 minutes that you have for your conversation, even if you don't get to share as much about your story or about your business or about your pitch or whatever it is. People won't ever remember what you say. They will only remember the way that they felt around you. And when we can understand that everyone has a human, like a beautiful need, like I'm not needy for it, right? Because there's a difference in, oh, I'm needy for you versus actually recognize the need that my soul has as a human for connection and to be seen and heard and known. When I can provide that space, like, hey, I value you, and this is a safe place for you to be seen and heard and known. And I'm going to actually invite you into expanding on what you're sharing about. I'm going to invite you into expanding into telling me more about your passion project or your business or your side hustle or what you're going through. You bring out in them like this expansion, and it allows them to be really seen and heard and known in that moment. So be really, really present and invite further discovery of them, even if you don't necessarily get to share a ton. You will be remembered over everyone else that just wants to talk at people and pitch themselves. And right, so we're talking about higher level networking things, right? Tips, and this is one of them. The next one is to come with a heart to serve and to add value. Again, if your value in that moment is inviting someone else to share about them even more, or maybe the value that you add is that you're sharing like one of your best kept secrets that you sell with your high ticket whatever offer, or you come, I love this analogy of, instead of like coming, it's a similar, like, instead of coming with the here I am, like here you are mentality, but coming with this servant leadership mentality, that is what is going to really help set you apart. And then this next one is to, instead of being the most interested, be the most or instead of being the most interesting person in the room, be the most interested. And this gets into really learning how to be a good listener. This gets into almost piggybacking off of what I was just saying, as far as inviting them into sharing more about what they were just sharing out about. Oh, tell me more about that. Like, be genuinely interested in what other people have to say and really hear them. And it gets again into that same concept of allowing people to be seen and heard and known, and value them for exactly for who they are and for who they're not. Like, be really interested in them, not for who they are on social media and not the whatever big following that they have. Like, show genuine interest in them as a human being and as who they are as a person. And then the next one is be the first to say hi. I love this one because when we walk into a room, all of a sudden, there might be a bunch of people there, and most people, they're actually waiting for someone else to invite them into a conversation, or they're waiting for someone else to say hi first, or they're waiting to be like invited into the conversation or into the little circle of people that are already talking. And so I want you to be the one that says hi first and to be the one that invites people into the conversation. Okay. So say you are walking into the room and all of a sudden I like say hi to that person and smile and wave and say hi to that person. When you come to the table, when you sit down, like say hi, like put your hand out and meet them, and like share your genuine excitement to be there, and that you're really excited, to just connect with them and be in the room and be around everyone's energy. And say you're making a connection with, another person or 2 or 3 people, and all of a sudden someone walks up and they are just kind of waiting there on the fringes to, like, maybe they're just kind of listening to the conversation and they're the ones that are like waiting to be a part of the conversation. Be the one that invites them in and actually acknowledges them. This is one of the quickest ways to show your heart to include people, to show, not just talk about it, but to be about it, that you are a gatherer, that you bring people in from the outskirts. And so invite people in. And I love this because this is one of the best ways to actually really make someone feel like they belong, right? Instead of being an outsider. We've all felt like the outsider. I know for me, I have for sure felt like the outsider, and I don't ever want anyone to feel like the outsider. And so I'm really, really intentional about when I see someone standing on the edge of a conversation, I open up my body language, I create space for them, and I say, hey, join us, come on in. We'd love to invite you into this conversation. And I invite them into the conversation, and I take the lead in that. And I want to encourage you to take the lead in that as well. Another really great tip is to follow up with the connections that you made at the event. So if you're there, get their Instagram or their name or their number or their business card, or take a fun selfie with them and take note of who you're connecting with, and then be really intentional to connect with them afterwards. Follow up, let them know you really enjoyed your conversation. Maybe they had a really great point that they were talking about, or something that you just loved. Be genuine in your follow-up and continue the conversation. I talked about in the first episode, being in community, being in networking, growing your network for the long haul, right? Because the ROI that happens when you understand the value of building connection and community for the long haul, the ROI might take longer. You might be having multiple conversations. It's going to take a little bit more time. It's going to take attention. It's going to take investment. But when you follow up, when you schedule the calls, when you shout them out on your social media and you're cheering them on with their launch, or you're offering like, hey, is anyone doing anything? Hey, I've got a podcast spot. I would love to invite you. I saw your book was launching. Would love to have you on the podcast. When you have those touch points and you have that follow up, and you have the, even though maybe it's once a week where you're saying, once a week, you are just reaching out to people and you're spending an hour and you're just saying, hey, how's it going today? Like, hey, how are you today? Hey, how was your week? You're just having those little touch points of follow-up. Those are going to really help people, again, feel loved and seen and known by you. The next one is to know that proximity is really, really powerful. The power of proximity, it's actually is an unfair advantage that I don't think a lot of people understand. I think sometimes people think that they're in proximity, but when you actually intentionally invest in yourself, into getting closer, I like to call this, like, I'm sure you've heard everyone's kind of connected by the 6 degrees of separation. And when you intentionally invest into getting into rooms that close some of those degrees of separation, and you actually get in closer proximity with people that might be the expanders for you, you're going to have to like maybe put on your big girl panties and get into that room that is going to expand you. They're going to think bigger. They're going to challenge you. Maybe you're the small fish in the big pond, like I talked about in this first episode of these high-level networking tips. These are going to be the ones that there's such power in proximity. And it's because you not only get on other people's radar, but you are forced to think differently in the best way possible. So that is definitely a tip that I would share. Like, be really intentional about getting into those rooms that are going to get you into proximity to close the degrees of separation with the people that you want to connect with. And then last but not least, have fun. Like, have fun with it. You are meeting with incredible people. Like, leave your junk at the door, leave whatever, like you're running late or you're a mishap or you're whatever, your kid pooped on you. Whatever it was that got you to the event that happened before the event, leave it at the door, come to have fun. I've heard this saying is that the person with the most hope in the room has the greatest influence. So come with hope, come with excitement, be responsible for the energy that you bring in the room, and have fun. All right, my friend, those are some of my top tips for high-level networking. I'd love to hear which one was your favorite. So send me a message on Instagram at Charity Majors. And if you know that you want to create high-level collisions, you want to create high-level community and connection, maybe you're already doing some of these things or doing all of these things that I told you about, and you've been in the rooms and you've been networking, and now you actually are feeling the call to lead the room, then being a Business and Bubbly chapter director could absolutely absolutely be for you. And this is where we actually partner with women that are connectors and leaders in their area. We teach them and equip them our profitable community framework. We teach them how to grow in their speaking and facilitation skills, and they get to partner with us in the Business and Bubbly brand and bring it into their area and really help shift culture in their local area and create community. If this is for you, go to businessandbubbly.com, click the button that says apply to lead a chapter in your area. And if you are going to be a good fit for this, I'll reach out to you and we'll schedule a call, and we will hopefully bring a local community and chapter into your area and help you become the leader that you're meant to be. All right, my friend, as always, have an incredible day and cheers to your success. Talk to you next time. Thank you so much for listening to the show. I hope it brought some value and some fun into your business and life. Remember to rate, review, and subscribe to the podcast, and even share the episode with a fellow business bestie who you know will love it. It helps us continue to attract top-level guests and reach more and more women who are on their journey in business just like you. Remember that when money gets in the hands of good women, great things happen. Cheers to your success.